Everybody knew that a time bomb was ticking in South Africa. It had been detonated by years of systemic oppression, suppression, depression, apartheid. It was an evil system that was deplorable, despicable, odious, and unbearable. And the voices of discontent were crying out in the wilderness. One of those voices was Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Bishop Tutu, during his early years, had wanted to become a doctor. But because of the unbearable expenses of such a pursuit, it was not to be. Before, during, and after my historic visit with Archbishop Desmond Tutu in Detroit. At that time, Coleman Alexander Young was the mayor. When I got word that Bishop Tutu was coming to Detroit, I wanted very much to speak with him. I made a call to Mayor Coleman Young's office, and with the assistance of Shahida Mause, a visit with Bishop Desmond Tutu was arranged. I went through at least 15 police checkpoints before my meeting with him in a Detroit hotel room. At the last police checkpoint, they told me that I had been cleared to meet with Bishop Desmond Tutu. I knocked on the door. I had expected to encounter another regiment of police security. Instead, it was just Bishop Desmond Tutu. When I walked in the room, I immediately felt the Spirit of Christ and destiny shaking hands. Historic, to say the least. But what I was not prepared for were the first words out of the mouth of Bishop Desmond Tutu. He said, "Hello, Mojo. May I get you some coffee?" I wanted nothing more than coffee that morning. I was not going to let Bishop Desmond Tutu fix me coffee. I would have gladly fixed him coffee, but I was not going to let him fix me coffee. We sat down and started talking. I had a list of prepared questions. But it was something about the atmosphere in the room that would not allow me to ask the questions that I had prepared. Instead, questions flooded into my mind once we started talking that destiny had already prepared for me. When I look back on that day that I spent with Bishop Desmond Tutu, I have to say that it was one of the most incredible days of my life. I was absolutely amazed and euphoric. He was so kind and so gentle, so wise, so deep, and so involved in freeing his people from the vestiges of apartheid. He was single-handedly focused on one thing, not the comforts that he was experiencing in Detroit, but the horrors that his people were experiencing that day in South Africa. What I can say is that Mayor Coleman Young had given him a head of state visit, complete with limousines and police escorts and sirens, wherever he went, and top-notch security. But I kept thinking about what he would be going back to the moment that he left the United States of America, back to the horrors of apartheid. Our conversation and our meeting was going fine until we got to one point. And I said, let's suggest a year that apartheid will have ended. The year we were talking was 1986, and the year that I had suggested was 1995. I said, let's say 1995, apartheid will have ended. And the look on Bishop Desmond Tutu's face grew alarmingly concerned for my sanity, because he looked at me as if he wanted to say, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, let's suggest 1995. Apartheid will have ended, and the people of South Africa will have been given the right to vote for the first time. And because of your worldwide crusade to end apartheid, maybe they would suggest that you become the first black president of South Africa. And then that's when he had to let it all out. He said, not on your life.
Bishop Desmond Tutu. Bishop Tutu, it is an extreme pleasure to talk to you and also to have you in the Metro Detroit area. Last night we did a segment of the show and I dedicated it to you. And I started it off by saying, whenever man's inhumanity against man reaches epidemic proportions, a prophet arrives on the scene to try to calm the troubled waters and try to help people see the light who don't see the light. Do you see yourself as the prophet of this generation?
First of all, may I say thank you for your very kind welcome and also for your dedication of a part of your program to me. I don't think any one of us usually sits looking at yourself in a mirror and say, hey, aren't I wonderful? Here I am, I'm a prophet, or whatever it may be that we are called to be. You just try to respond to God's call. I mean, you have your particular calling as a communicator, and you don't go preening yourself all over the place. You just want to try and carry out what you're doing. And it is usually for other people to try to say what their assessment is of you.
Bishop Tutu, let's project ourselves into the future. Let's just pick a year, 1995. The year is 1995. The evil system of apartheid has been abandoned. There is now a new large segment of new voters in South Africa. The government has been reorganized. Free elections for the first time have been planned. At that time, you'll still be a young age of 63. When you look back on the year 1986, the year that you visited America, you made millions of brand new friends, and there's a tremendous international support for Bishop Desmond Tutu to become the first president of a free South Africa. How would you respond to that challenge?
Oh, I have no doubt at all that I would say, not on your life. There are far, far more worthy people, and our people know whom they want. They want Nelson Mandela, and pray God that he will be alive, hale and hearty to take on this. I have no political ambition whatsoever. I am a simple pastor and would like to be able to be allowed to do the thing that God has asked me to do, which is to be a pastor to his people.
Speaking of Mr. Mandela, what are the differences and the similarities between the philosophies of Bishop Desmond Tutu and Mr. Mandela?
Hardly any significant difference. We all, including myself and Nelson, want a country in South Africa where a person is valued because they are a person and not because of a biological irrelevance, the color of their skin. We are looking for a society which will be compassionate and caring, a society where black and white would be able to live amicably together, a society that is democratic, with a freely elected government chosen by all of the people participating in the elections. We would be looking for a kind of country that would be compassionate, it would be sharing, it would be caring. And that has been the objective of the organization which Nelson Mandela heads, the African National Congress. Where we would part company is how to achieve that goal. And his organization has been compelled by the intransigence of the South African government and by having been declared an illegal organization in 1960. They have been compelled to opt for the armed struggle. Now, I cannot at this present stage support that side of his method.
What if a situation were to develop? Well, let me ask the question this way. Let's say there's a time bomb that's ticking in South Africa, and each day, each year, each moment, it ticks louder and louder and louder. And when there's a time bomb, it inevitably leads to an explosion. Do you think this time bomb can be diffused with the position that you take?
I believe that your description is quite right. It is frightening that we are on the verge of a catastrophe at home when we could have an enormous conflagration, but that it is still possible if the South African government can be pressured to go to the negotiating table with the authentic and true representatives and spokespersons for the various sections of our community. It is possible to negotiate a settlement in which we would have a transition from a repressive dispensation to a more equitable one. But if the international community does not assist us, especially if America does not assist us, then it is likely that the time bomb will explode.
So you're saying basically that while it's true it's up to South Africans to solve this South African problem, that it's possible that with pressure from America and other large countries in the European bloc, that the bomb could be diffused from the outside?
Oh yes, I believe this quite fervently. And I think the United States does know that it has a pivotal role to play in determining whether we are going to have a reasonably peaceful resolution of the crisis of our country, or the opposite, what a former Prime Minister in South Africa called the alternative too ghastly to contemplate. And we have been trying to say the kind of pressures we want are political, diplomatic, but above all economic. And the people of this country, the great people of this country, have, through making a moral choice against apartheid, forced the hand of the president, because he has been compelled to apply sanctions against South Africa against his will.
What companies can you name do you see as the main culprits that are a part of the problem as opposed to being a part of the solution? And these American companies are companies that people would recognize right off. Maybe there's a possibility that, you know, these companies can be dealt with or can be convinced that it's in the best interest of the survival of their country, you know, for this to end peacefully.
Yes, why don't we be nice for the moment and say that there are several American corporations in South Africa, and people know them. I mean, you know, and I would say that maybe I should not name them at this point, because they are very, very well known, especially some which are based in your city.
I think a lot of people would like to know. I would like to know.
Without saying where one is in regard to these companies, you have General Motors, you've got Ford, you've got IBM, you've got Coca-Cola, you have various of your banks, Citibank, and things of that kind. Why I wouldn't have wanted to name them is that I would be forced to name some and not others, because I don't have a comprehensive list, and that is why I was reluctant to say which particular companies. There are more. I think there are about 300 companies, in fact, American companies.
After you return home, is it possible that I could get in touch with you and get a comprehensive list?
Yes, in fact, you'll be able to get one from various groups in this country that are concerned about the situation. I mean, Randall Robinson's Trans-Africa in Washington, D.C. would be able to provide you with such a list. The Washington office on Africa would be able to do that as well. But I mean, let's keep in touch. I would be very glad to keep in touch with you. Yes.
What does apartheid do to an individual?
I think it can help to fill you with a lot of bitterness and anger and frustration, because you are treated as if you were not a human being. And I suppose that you in this country have had a little bit of that kind of experience in your Jim Crow days, especially in the South, where you were a non-person really, a non-entity, when you could be called, I mean, your father or grandfather was called boy and your grandmother girl. Your human dignity went for a loop, and it's basically that you are treated as if you were less than a human being.
If I were to catch a plane today to go to South Africa, Soweto Township, after having lived in America all my life, in Detroit for a number of years, what would be the immediate impact of apartheid on me after having stepped off the plane?
Because you are black, you would have to have some means of saying whether you have a right to be where you were. All black people from the age of 16, male or female, must carry a pass because they are not free to travel and move freely in the land of their birth. You have to live in a ghetto such as Soweto. You wouldn't be free to live wherever you wanted. You would not be free to go to any school, or your children would not be free to go to any school. One of the most important is you are not really a citizen because you would not be allowed to vote, and therefore the laws that apply against you would be inherently unjust because you didn't have a part in their making.
Bishop Tutu, after you return home, back to your pulpit, and you reflect on this trip to America, the things that you wanted to say to America, and how would you like to be remembered by Americans? And when they think of the Right Reverend Desmond Tutu, what thoughts would you want to come to mind?
I would hope that they would remember that our people are enormously grateful for what Americans are doing or have done, that our struggle is a just struggle, and that Americans would be ready to be associated with us, to be identified with us in our struggle, that remembering their own history, especially black people in the civil rights movement, they would want to be our allies, and would I hope that they would remember that we came to this country primarily to get Americans, wonderful people, to pressure their government and the private sector to take action that will end apartheid. And I would suggest that they remember that that action is really just as simple as making the president of this country see South Africa as if it were Nicaragua.
I started the interview off by saying a prophet always arrives on the scene. And I want to end it by saying that the prophet is now in Detroit. He is the Right Reverend Desmond Tutu. It's a pleasure to have you talk to Power 96 and Electrifying Mojo. I will definitely keep in touch with you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you very, very much, and God bless you all for 1986, and have a great time.
Thank you very much.
In 1986, we asked the question regarding another year, 1995. Did we just pull 1995 out of the hat, or was it a divine premonition of what was to come in South Africa? I remember distinctly asking Archbishop Desmond Tutu the question, and I saw the look upon his face when I said, let's pick a year, 1995. Apartheid will have ended, and millions of South Africans would have been given the right to vote in a fair and free election. If that election were to take place, would you run to be the first black president of the Republic of South Africa? I can see his face now saying, not on your life. He said, the people of South Africa know whom they would want to be their first president. If he is healthy, hearty, and alive, Nelson Mandela would be the first black president of South Africa. That conversation took place in 1986. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was out of prison and in Detroit. And this is what he said to Detroit.
When we were in prison, we appreciated and avidly listened to the sound of Detroit, Motor Town. On reaching Detroit, I recall some of the words of a song sung by Marvin Gaye, another famous motor oil product. The words go, quote, brother, there's far too many of you dying. These words are a reflection of the South African condition. For how long must our brothers and sisters go on dying? We declare, not for long.
After our private meeting at a Detroit hotel, I watched Archbishop Desmond Tutu cast his vote for the first time in South Africa for Nelson Mandela, just 4 years after Nelson Mandela had visited Detroit in 1990. In 1994, 1 year shy of our prediction, Bishop Desmond Tutu voted, and Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa.
Thanks for those who were able to win for us this dispensation, and give thanks to God. Bye-bye, I'm done.
Arch, I don't think at this stage, Arch, you're going to say who you voted for today.
No, you want to say, I voted. How important
is it to cast your vote?
What?
How important is it for South Africans to cast our vote?
It is absolutely crucial. People died for this right. People were imprisoned. People suffered. And so we mustn't waste it. We mustn't waste it. We must keep remembering we got this at a very great price.
Archbishop, you said you won't vote the ANC. Did you live up to that undertaking?
You are smart, aren't you?
This way.
My vote is my secret.
Both Nelson Mandela and South Africa had traveled a long way to get to this moment. More than 300 years of white domination ended for good with the swearing in of Nelson Mandela as this African nation's first black president.
So help me God.
He was the most famous opponent of the brutal racist system of apartheid, imprisoned 27 years. Today, Mandela paid tribute to his new vice president, F.W. de Klerk, the last apartheid president who negotiated the historic transfer of power. Mandela then called for unity in this racially diverse and racially divided land.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us.
This was something few people ever had expected to see, a peaceful transition after years of bloody racial strife. Hundreds of dignitaries from around the world came to witness history, to see the South African military, which once had enforced apartheid, fly overhead in tribute to Nelson Mandela, trailing the colors of the new South African flag.
If you like this video, hit the like button. If you wish to subscribe, hit the subscription button, and you'll be notified of all of the videos that I post.
Desmond Tutu was born in 1931 in an impoverished township in South Africa. He wanted to be a doctor, but wound up a parish priest and a prophet.
For until blacks are free, no one in this country is going to be free.
For 30 years, he was a leader in his people's struggle to end apartheid, the rule of white supremacy.
If you think you can stop us from becoming free, you are going to be stampeded.
The course was hard and costly.
The system tries all it can to destroy us. It won't succeed. God is on our side.
In 1984, Tutu was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. 1 year later, even as his own people still could not vote, the Anglican Church enthroned him as the first black archbishop in South Africa.
The man we are looking at today wanted to be a doctor, but his family could not afford the fees, so he became a teacher instead. It is fortunate that he did not become a doctor, because instead he became a keen figure in bringing down the apartheid regime in South Africa. This man stands among the world's foremost human rights activists, men like Nelson Mandela, Gandhi and Martin Luther King. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. He reads the Bible for spiritual enrichment every day. His name is Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu was born in 1931 in Transvaal in South Africa. He had a happy upbringing. His father was a teacher and his mother cooked and cleaned at a school for the blind. He especially loved reading comic strips, Aesop's fables and the plays of Shakespeare. His family moved to Johannesburg when Desmond was 12 years old. One day he was out walking with his mother when a white man, a priest named Trevor Huddleston, tipped his hat to her, the first time he had ever seen a white man pay this respect to a black woman. The incident made a profound impression on Tutu, teaching him that he need not accept discrimination. He also learned that religion could be a powerful tool for advocating racial equality. Trevor Huddleston became a friend and mentor. In 1948, when Tutu was 17 years old, the National Party won control of the government and codified the nation's long-present segregation and inequality into the official rigid policy of apartheid. Black Africans had no vote and were forced to live in specific areas. Desmond obtained teaching qualifications and taught at Johannesburg Bantu High School for 3 years, but he resigned after a government act changed education for blacks and limited their education possibilities. After obtaining theology qualifications, firstly in South Africa and then in London for a higher degree, he became an Anglican priest in 1960. 1960 was the year the South African government began a program of forced relocation of black Africans and Asians out of newly designated white areas. Millions were deported to the homelands and only permitted to return as guest workers. Tutu's rise to international prominence began when he became the first black person to be appointed the Anglican Dean of Johannesburg in 1975. It was in this position that he emerged as one of the most prominent and eloquent voices in the South African anti-apartheid movement. Tutu explained, "I realised that I had been given a platform that was not readily available to many blacks, and most of our leaders were either now in chains or in exile. And I said, well, I'm going to use this to seek to try to articulate our aspirations and the anguishes of our people." This he did, and constantly challenged white rule publicly in his sermons and at every opportunity. In 1976, he became Bishop of Lesotho for 3 years. The year 1976 was the year of the Soweto riots. These riots were against the government's use of Afrikaans as a compulsory medium of instruction in black schools and caused a massive uprising against apartheid. In 1978, he became the Secretary General of the South African Council of Churches. This position gave Bishop Tutu a national platform to denounce the apartheid system as evil and unchristian. He encouraged non-violent resistance to the apartheid regime and advocated an economic boycott of the country by other countries. He often compared apartheid to Nazism and communism. As a result, the government twice revoked his passport, and he was jailed briefly in 1980 after a protest march. In 1984, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. This transformed South Africa's anti-apartheid movement into a truly international force with sympathies all across the globe. Desmond said about the award, it opened doors, which was important for our people. In 1985, the US and UK stopped any investments in South Africa to put pressure on the South African government. It was in this year that he became the first black Bishop of Johannesburg. He was on the rise, and a year later Desmond became the Bishop of Cape Town.
In 1994, millions of black South Africans, including Tutu, voted for the first time. Nelson Mandela was elected president. Mandela asked Archbishop Tutu to chair the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
In 1986, we asked the question regarding another year, 1995. Did we just pull 1995 out of a hat, or was it a divine premonition of what was to come in South Africa? I remember distinctly asking Archbishop Desmond Tutu the question, and I saw the look upon his face when I said, let's pick a year, 1995. Apartheid will have ended, and millions of South Africans would have been given the right to vote in a fair and free election. If that election were to take place, would you run to be the first black president of the Republic of South Africa? I can see his face now saying, not on your life. He said, the people of South Africa know whom they would want to be their first president. If he is healthy, hearty, and alive, Nelson Mandela would be the first black president of South Africa. That conversation took place in 1986. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was out of prison and in Detroit. And this is what he said to Detroit.
When we were in prison, we appreciated and avidly listened to the sound of Detroit, Motortown. On reaching Detroit, I recall some of the words of a song sung by Marvin Gaye, another famous motor-owned product. The words go, quote, brother, there's far too many of you dying. These words are a reflection of the South African condition. For how long must our brothers and sisters go on dying? We declare, not for long.